Today, I'd like to welcome to the channel Darryl Threat. Daryl, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Daryl, you're in Columbus, Ohio. You
Yep.
work in real estate. I know you've been working in real estate for several years, a sales leader in your position, work with a lot of buyers. Thought that maybe we could pick your brain today and get some insights into what's going on in the real estate market today. So thank you very much for joining me. I guess, just to kind of start off with, you're working in Central Ohio. For those of the viewers that haven't been to Columbus before, aren't familiar with Ohio, tell us a little bit about that market. What is Columbus like?
Wow. Well, Columbus, the real estate market is really vibrant right now. We're kind of like a lot of the country where there's a lot of buyers, but not a lot of inventory. And there's more and more people moving here. So it elevates the prices a little bit. It becomes, as a new home buyer or any buyer for that matter, sometimes it can be quite competitive.
Yeah. So, Columbus, Midwest, usually people don't think of cities in the Midwest as somewhere people are moving to.
Yeah.
What's going on that people are moving to Columbus?
Well, you always had the city inside of the city, and by that I mean Ohio State. Um, Huge college, puts out tons of graduates every year. But on top of that, you have a lot of technology coming to Columbus. You have Honda. We have Intel now, which that's a whole thing. They're spending billions of dollars and bringing in tons of people to the area for that. Have a couple of Amazon fulfillment centers. So there's a lot going on here as far as technology and people coming.
Very nice. Manufacturing,
Yep,
technology, distribution. You haven't even mentioned financial services, and I
I
believe
have not.
Columbus is home to Nationwide. JP Morgan Chase has a large
Yeah,
footprint there. A lot of
yeah,
financial services and insurance as well, right?
yeah. This is. I mean, from the time I'm not native to here. I've been here for about 20 years, which I can't believe it's been 20 years. But just in the 20 years that I've been here, it's blossomed into this big city now.
That's great. Terrific. And
Yeah,
where are you from originally?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, good. Probably feeling pretty good about where the Browns are right now. Still looking
Uh,
looking at a chance for getting into the playoffs at this point, right?
Cautiously optimistic, Chris.
Well, good. So the Columbus Metro, I believe, has roughly what, 1.5 million, 2 million people, fairly
Yeah.
large metro. Are there any certain parts of town that you focus your efforts on?
So I kind of live by the mantra, have car, will travel, but the majority of my business comes from the north side of town, northeast, even northwest, primarily Delaware County, northern Franklin County, and but I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere.
In those northern areas, are there any amenities or certain features that tend to attract people to those areas?
I think the thing that attracts people to those areas the most is really where they're working. One, I know I do a lot of business with hospital personnel, so being close to hospitals is a big thing. Freeways, of course, access, Easton, shopping centers, restaurants, all kinds of things. I mean, you can readily find that anywhere in Columbus, but because I live on this side of town, I feel like it's probably the better town side of town for all of those things.
For sure. Well, having a little familiarity with Columbus, I can kind of validate that those are, some of the more vibrant, parts of downtown. So
Sure,
no
sure.
challenge there. So let's get down into the sort of the market statistics. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with real estate right now. I know you mentioned that inventory, the inventory isn't quite matched up to buyers. Are you seeing are you seeing a trend where there's less and less inventory or more and more inventory, or what's the trend right now?
Well, I see there's throughout the year, it kind of goes with the cycle of sales throughout the year. Um, Now during this time, inventory is lower. We're going through the holidays. It's cold outside. Things tend to slow down. But in January, at least for the past 4 or 5 years, I've seen a spike in inventory. But it still doesn't match the number or the amount of buyers that are out there. So you're still getting into multiple offer situations. It's fierce, man. Sometimes you really have to. I try to prepare my buyers for this when we sit down and talk before we even go out. Is you have to be kind of laser focused and kind of have to go in there with a war mentality. There's been times where I've gone to houses, set up an appointment in a house, and there's a line of people waiting to
Wow.
get into that house
Wow.
just to see it. So out of those people, you figure 10% make offers, and you got a multiple offer situation, which inflates the prices.
Wow. So as you alluded to, right now it's December 5th. So not
Mhm.
the busiest time of year for real estate. Everybody kind of tied up with the holidays and so forth. But hopefully with
Yep.
January, we'll start to see things picking up.
Yep.
I'm curious, one of the things you have a reputation for is understanding your buyers very well and what they're looking for and what they need in real estate. Are you seeing any changes from the buyer side with interest rates? Obviously, mortgage rates have climbed up quite a bit. What are you seeing from the buyer side?
So from the buyer side, as far as interest rates, they have climbed. I thought that would deter some buyers, and in fact, it does for sure.
Mhm.
But I think there's still, if you look at historically what interest rates have been, I think my mom, when she bought her house, she told me she had an 18% interest rate,
Wow.
you know? So, I mean,
That kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't
it
it?
really does. It really does. And when you come like off of what we just came off of, where the interest rates were so low, and kind of have to explain to people that this is almost the norm, and the past couple of years have kind of been an anomaly. Um, and they don't want to hear that, but once they realize that, moving forward, that yeah, okay, now the interest rates are higher, I may have to tone down what I thought I can afford, you
Mhm.
know, which means a smaller house or maybe a house in an area outside the area that I was thinking about originally. Um, that's the main thing. Sometimes I work with a bunch of different lenders, they have different programs. So you start seeing a little more creativity, um, instead of just the regular, conventional deals or FHA deals.
Yeah, well, but the desire for a home, the desire to buy a house seems to be overtaking the pain of higher interest rates at this point.
Yeah, it's still there, man. People, I mean, at the end of the day, home ownership is still one of the best, the best ways to increase wealth, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't think homes are gonna go down in price anytime soon, you know. So I think that, with that, with another thing that drives people in Columbus is schools. So, with people wanting to be in different schools, that's going to drive, what they where they want to be and when they want to be there. And still, it's still a better alternative to renting, you
Mhm.
know.
For sure. So I'm kind of curious from your experience, if you look back over the last 5 or 10 years, whether talking about Columbus specifically or real estate more generally, what would you say
Mhm.
has been the biggest change that you've seen in the market or in buyer patterns, seller patterns with real estate?
Wow. Well, when I first started, you would see people who were more willing to buy a home that needed work. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen so far. Um, Now people, I think, is maybe with the trends on home and garden TV or whatnot, you tend to see people who are like, I want something that's already a finished product. I want it to look this way. I need to have shiplap and all the fancy stuff. And you see a lot more of that than you see people who are willing to put some sweat equity into their home. But I think that'll change too, with the interest rates. If you want to be in a certain house, then you may have to settle for certain things and update it on your own.
Good. So you think maybe going into next year as people adjust to the higher rates, adjust to, the tightness in inventory, that maybe they might be a little bit more willing to get a little bit more of a fixer upper, or, something that just needs a little bit more updating.
Yeah, I think they'll be a little more open-minded to what they want. The TV trends have, you know, they I can see it in people. I have to tell people right away, look, we're not just going to go look at three houses and you pick one,
Mhm.
and you move in a half an hour. That's not how it works. Typically, that's not how it works. So
Sure.
once you explain the process to them, and then just really dig into what their wants and needs are at the end of the day. I mean, everybody wants, you know, a house with a pool, but is that necessary for you? Do you need that?
Mhm.
It's your first house. Calm down.
So I know you've worked in other markets besides Central Ohio.
Mhm.
Is there anything about Columbus and Central Ohio that makes it unique compared to some of the other markets that you've had experience with?
Yeah, so I think Columbus specifically is different because one, its location. I think that's like one of the things that nobody ever talks about. You're like just a couple hours from Indianapolis and Nashville. You can go, there's all kinds of flights or even drives. Me and some friends went to the Bourbon Trail. It took us, 3 or 4 hours to get there. I think location is um, one of the big factors in making the city like what it is.
Mhm.
I think also the the fact of its location is bringing in more people, more commerce, more businesses.
Mhm.
Everything that we talked about before, I think is a lot of it is location based, as opposed to a couple of the other places that I've done real estate in,
Mhm.
especially down south. Down south is a totally different animal.
Lots of jobs in Central Ohio, people moving into Columbus for those jobs, people moving in, creating new jobs. It's just kind of continues to feed off of itself. Probably one of the
Small
fastest
businesses,
small
small
businesses. Yeah,
Yep.
probably one of the fastest growing metros in the Midwest at this point, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's great.
Feels a lot like I don't know if you're familiar with Austin, Texas, and how it kind of grew.
Hmm.
If you look at the numbers, and I don't remember them right off the top of my head, but they had, and I think they still are growing, but they had almost like a decade's worth of growth, because they were bringing in new businesses and technology. It's set up a lot like Columbus. It has a whole outer belt and everything like that. And like when you look at the numbers and compare Columbus to Austin, the numbers are really, really similar. So I'm hoping that we continue with this growth and for as long as Austin has as well.
Absolutely. So, you work with a lot of first-time home buyers, which obviously presents a different challenge than somebody who's maybe already owned a home or a series of homes over their life. I'm kind of curious, based on your experience, what are some things that you would recommend for people as they look to buy their first home? They've been renting, they're at the point now where they want to start looking, maybe potentially, buying a home. What are some things that you would tell them to help prepare them for that?
Number one thing is talk to somebody on your financial end, preferably a lender, so
Mhm.
you know what you can afford. You're walking out with probably a pre-approval or a pre-qualification, which gives you power to make an offer based off of whatever that number is. That's number one. If you don't have that information, you're just walking around blind. And any realtor that takes you out with that information is doing you a disservice as well and wasting their own time. Um, I think budget is probably the most important thing. Just piggybacking what I just said, sitting back, knowing how much house you can afford, what makes you feel comfortable. You don't want to be house rich or house poor, I guess is the term. Um, you, that's probably number one out of everything. Second thing, I think um, you got to find yourself a good realtor, man. Like I know there's some backlash going on right now, against realtors and commissions, but you got to go with somebody in your area who is local, who knows the market. Sometimes we see things that never come on the market, never become public. And so you could be missing out on opportunities. So those are probably the two most important things: finance and having a good agent to represent you.
Great. Since you touched on realtors and realtor commissions,
Hmm.
obviously there was a lot in the news here recently about the big lawsuit around the commissions and buyer agent fees, as part of that commission.
Yep.
Any thoughts that you can share on that, or any thoughts on where that's going to go from here?
I honestly, Chris, I try and keep in a positive mind state. So until it affects me, actually, I really don't pay attention to it. I know a little bit about it. I know enough to be dangerous. But I think moving, going into the future, things are going to change, right? Um, how real estate agents get paid is going to change. How sellers and buyers pay or have fees is going to change. I don't know what that's going to be, and it's not going to just deter me one way or another from helping people. So I don't really think about it too hard.
Sure. Well, when you think about the service that you provide to a buyer, especially somebody who hasn't owned a home before, the guidance that you can provide, the knowledge and expertise that you can share with them to help them through that process. Obviously, a lot of implications when you start talking about change in fees and how you get compensated for providing that service. So something we'll obviously be keeping a close eye on as we go into the next
Sure,
year.
sure. I mean, things in this game are gonna change, but I think the only thing that, I think everything changes all the time, and so how you adapt to it is, how you survive.
Sure.
And I hope it drives some of the people out of real estate, because there's too many realtors to me.
Yeah. Very, very competitive industry to be in, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So I'm curious, with some of the buyers that you've worked with, or even buyers that you didn't represent them when they bought their home, but you talked to, what's the biggest regret that you see from people after they've purchased their first home? Any big things that you see, often that they're surprised by or weren't prepared for in home ownership?
Well, one of the things I see, especially with new home buyers who build or buy new construction homes, sometimes they forget or they don't account for um, assessed taxes.
Mhm.
That first year of living in a brand new home, the taxes aren't fully assessed. A year and a half, they get that tax bill and they're like, whoa, how'd this happen? So I try, for me, education is paramount. So having these discussions, I don't like surprises. So I don't want my people to be surprised by anything either. Um, on a personal level, I think when it comes to a new house, they're either surprised by how much room they have or how little room they have. And then, sometimes they're like, well, I need a bigger house, which, I'm totally there for, but I think, when you're out looking at houses and some of them are empty, it's kind of hard to account for space.
Yeah. Trying to visualize what it looks like with furniture and can be a little bit more difficult sometimes. Makes
Absolutely.
sense. With the buyers that you've worked with, have you ever run into a situation where you've talked somebody out of buying a home? Maybe they're all ready to go, ready to put an offer in, and you say, "Hey, wait a second."
Yep. So I typically, when we have our first appointment and I sit down with people, I try and gather as much information as I can. Again, no surprises, right? Um, but people aren't always totally forthcoming with you. So, sometimes, they pick a house that was like totally out of the area that they even told you that they wanted, or a totally different house than what they told you they wanted, something like that. Um, but there's been times I've talked people out of houses, but the majority of the time it was either something weird going on with the house, like a mold situation, or I saw something, and I'm not an expert, right? But I've seen enough houses to know, like, hey, that's not right, you know.
Mhm.
So, if you see something structural, you know, I, I try not to talk them out of it, but I want them to go ahead and investigate it a little bit more, you know.
Yeah.
But there's been times when I say, hey, look at that. That looks weird. And then they're like, whoa, we don't, we thought we liked this house and now we're out. And I'm like, that's probably a smart idea.
Yeah. Wow, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, I've known you for a long time. I know that you have a reputation, for knowing the buyers, knowing what the buyers are looking for, and being a very helpful guide for them as they go through that process. So, if it's good to hear that, if there's a situation that maybe is not right for them, that you're willing to step in and help them. And I'm sure that they appreciate you even more, for doing that for them.
Absolutely, man. I think, listen, I come from a state of thought of where, like, honesty is the best policy, right? And I
Mhm.
even ask people before we even go out, I was like, if I see something, do you want me to point it out? And most of I never had anybody say no, you know. So, when we're going through this, I have, again, a lot of new home buyers, but like a lot of, one of the demographics that are buying houses the most right now are single females. And so I get a lot of single females out, and they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm here for, and ultimately I have two daughters. Would I let my daughter buy this house? You know, um, whether it be, something wrong with the house, or the neighborhood being a little shady, which, that's a fine line, of course. I can't, you know, tell you not to buy because this neighborhood's crazy, but I might hint at, like, you might want to drive back around here, later this evening and see if you feel comfortable with it.
Mhm. It's good. So Daryl, before we wrap here, I do want to ask you about something else. On
Yeah,
social media, you're known as the Cigar Realtor. Uh, so I
yeah,
got to ask you, are there any cigars that you're particularly fond of or would like to recommend?
yeah, man. So I guess, whew, that's a loaded question. So I think I love Davidoff. My favorite smoke is the Davidoff Churchill Late Hour. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful smoke, but it's a little bit pricey. If you want to go to something that's a little more budget friendly, Oliva.
Mm,
Those are really great sticks. I love them. I
good,
need to
good.
come back to Tampa, man. I need to get back down there because that is like cigar heaven down
It
there.
is, yes. Well, next
Yeah.
time you want to come down, we'll definitely hit up the cigar shop for you.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ybor City.
Well, Daryl, thank you very much for joining me today. I've enjoyed our discussion, and I'm sure all of our viewers have gotten a lot out of this. And with that, I do want to wish you a good rest of your day.
Thank you, man. And thanks for having me. I really love your channel. I appreciate what you're doing. I gotta, this is, your channel has catapulted me into a different mindset, and I need to do better.
Terrific. Thanks,
Yeah.
Daryl.
All right, man. Have a good one.